I'm Brian Battle, Performance Trust Capital Partners based here in Chicago, Illinois. So the president's announced a debt forgiveness program here, and he is allowed to do that because we have to remember is in 2010, the Obama administration effectively nationalized student loan lending in the United States. So right now, there's about $1.6 trillion in student loans in the United States, and the federal government just owns about $1.3 trillion. So what the president has announced is he's going to forgive somewhere between $20,000 and $10,000 per borrower if your income is at $125,000 a year or below. So there's going to be also a suspension of principal and interest payments through the end of the year of this year. So that's more relief. So what does that mean in the big scheme of things? There's three components we have to consider. There's the economics, the public policy part of it, and then the politics of it. The economics are, by forgiving this debt, the federal government is forgoing people repaying them about $300 billion. So what's happened is the taxpayers have given student borrowers $300 billion. So at the margin, that's a small number out of 1.3 trillion, but still it's $300 billion. That's real money that the taxpayers are giving to student borrowers. I'm not saying it's a right or wrong answer. It's just we've given them $300 billion. The policy part of it is, it's a hard decision because what the administration has said is, look, if you took out a student loan and repaid it, or if you never took out a student loan, you get no benefit. So it's kind of a hard policy decision that they've made, but that leads to the third point, which is politics. The Biden administration promised student debt relief, and this has been lingering in the background. There's been a lot of movement in the party, in the Democratic Party, to say, hey, we need to do a lot of debt relief, or maybe we should do a little bit. This sort of checks the box for the administration that it's a win. They are giving debt relief, but there's some idea that we might be helping the wrong people because most of the benefit is going to go to the people that pay taxes in the higher tax brackets. About 60% of the benefit, or most of the benefit, I should say, goes to people in the higher 2/3 of the income strata. So there might have been a better way to give relief to low-income borrowers, but this is the one the administration chose. It's going to cost $300 billion. Some people aren't going to be happy with that it's too much, and some people are going to not be happy that it's not enough. So it's interesting timing. The administration has been lingering on making this decision on student debt relief, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it was released right here in the middle of the summer before the midterms. So you might say that that's being Machiavellian about it, that wow, exactly right before the midterms they did student debt relief, but it's an issue that has been on the back burner that has just been all of a sudden here at the end of the summer moved to the front burner. So there is some, and it's shrewd political timing to do it right now when there's not a lot of headlines and the administration could use a win. The administration's debt forgiveness is $10,000 if you of debt relief if you don't have a Pell Grant and if you have a government loan, student loan. So after 2010, and there's $20,000 debt relief if you have a Pell Grant. So Pell Grant is just a grant to more financially distressed borrowers. So that number's higher because those people need more relief. So the average student loan borrower, there's a million ways to cut this, is borrowed somewhere between $10,000, $20,000, or $30,000. So that relief is a big number, and it could, in some instances, completely eliminate their student debt. So we should see some details here in the coming days of how this is going to be affected. How do you apply for this, or is it just shaved off of your balance? We don't know all those details yet, but it should be pretty immediate because that's something the administration controls and that they can do directly without any market or counterparty cooperation. The administration can just by fiat eliminate that debt. There is going to be another extension of debt relief. So there's no principal and interest payments due. The announcement is through December 31st of 2022. It's right after the midterm. So we'll have a lot better idea of whether this is the last one or not. We have a really low unemployment rate in the US. It seems like this would be a great time to stop giving that extension on debt relief because the people that borrow that money probably are employed and probably could start making payments again. So we have suspended principal and interest payments for student loans for a really long time. It'd be an opportune time to turn that back on again and get those people paying back on their loans. This student debt relief will do two things. First, it will take people that have borrowed money. Let's say you have a $20,000 student debt hanging over your shoulder, that goes away. So what it'll do, it'll increase by about $300 billion income for the people that had student loans. So what this does is it adds money supply to the economy. So it gives all those people a boost in their personal balance sheet. Instead of having a $10,000 student loan, now it's zero. So it increases leverage. It makes consumers feel better about their financial position, makes them more willing to spend. So there should be some stimulative benefit that these people now have more money and feel less burdened, that they have more discretionary income. However, $300 billion in the US economy, which is somewhere in the 20 to $25 trillion range, is a small number. So at the margin, it's really not going to affect the economy that much. If you have a student loan, it's going to affect you a lot. So the micro benefit is going to be very large. The macro benefit is going to be very, very small. With a debt forgiveness movement like this, so the administration has fulfilled the promise. Is this the first step? Or is there going to be more debt forgiveness? That's a really hard question because the politics and the policies around that are very, very complicated. So instead of $300 billion in relief, we're talking trillions. I mean, it's a $1.3 trillion that the US Treasury, the US government, that you and I as taxpayers, we own $1.3 trillion of student debt. To forgive it all would be a massive policy decision with unbelievably complicated ripples into the US economy. That seems like a bridge too far. There would be a lot of opinion on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, or if it's even effective, because that we're helping everybody, or should we help a targeted percentage of the population that needs that relief? So I would suspect that we're not going to see overall just blanket indemnification from student loans. There could be another targeted relief, but it seems like this one just might be a one and done. How it works, like, do you have to fill something out? Do you have to go to a website? I mean, that's not clear yet. Those details will emerge very quickly. What will probably happen, since all of that student loan debt that we're talking about right now, it's government debt, your balance just might get shaved off. So we'll see how that's affected, but the details aren't clear yet. But wherever you keep track of your student loan, or what your balance is, or where you make your payments, you haven't made a payment lately, but where you make those payments, that place will describe how you're going to get relief.